Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. It's been forever since I've recorded one of these videos. I can check actually. When was the last one? I think the last one was updated November the 2nd, 2020. I'm so sorry. Life just got in the way, and life has been, it's been weird. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. I know life's been weird for everyone. It's been a weird few years, but I hope you're all alright. I've missed you. I've missed doing this. I've missed speaking to you all. I know quite a few of you listened to Escape from Furnace, Lockdown in Lockdown, Escape from Furnace. Fewer of you have listened to Harry Hardman, but that's okay because it's not even out yet still. We're in 2022 now. But hopefully that will be remedied very soon. So I hope you're all well. I hope you're all healthy and happy, and I hope the last few years, as difficult as they may have been kind to you. It's really lovely to be back. What I decided is that as the summer holidays are coming, I am gonna probably read the Devil's Engine trilogy as the next instalment of Lockdown and Lockdown, even though we're not technically in Lovedown. Oh, that would be something. Lovedown sounds way nicer. But anyway, yeah, so, see, I'm 20 seconds in, I'm already losing my train of thought. Yeah, I completely forgot what I was saying. Yeah, anyway, yeah, I'm going to read The Devil's Engine, I think, because they're nice, entertaining reads, and then I'll probably do The Fury, next year. The Fury's a bit more hard-going, and I still feel like people want, to relax and enjoy and have a nice time. So I'm gonna read The Devil's Engine over summer. 3 books. Might not get it finished in summer, obviously, but I'll do my best. But I thought before then I really need to finish reading Harry Hardman versus Halloween because I never finished it. I'm sorry about that for anyone who was listening. I'm in a new office, as you can probably tell. We recently kind of built a new house. Built a new house on the top of our old house, which was very weird. And my office went from being this giant space upstairs to this pokey little room downstairs. So over the summer, kids aren't here at the moment, but you will hear them running back and forth and knocking on the door. And I'm sure they'll pop in and introduce themselves at some point. New hair as well. I was just looking at my last Harry Hardman video and my hair is crazy. It's so big. Still got the beard. Although I look a lot greyer. What's going on? But it's still me, Alexander Gordon-Smith, and yeah, I'm here and I'm back. So you didn't come here to listen to me prattle on about my hair. It's been so long that I can't even remember the plot for Harry Hardman. All I vaguely remember is that Harry Hardman is an 11-year-old boy living in America. He's obsessed with Halloween. This is back in the 80s. He loves Halloween. His best thing in the world is Halloween, basically. He looks forward to it every year. He built this amazing costume. It took him over a year to make this amazing costume for Halloween called Dr. Slasher von Wolfen-Roboterstein, I think. Hang on, I've got the thing here. Dr. Slasher von Wolfen-Roboterstein. That is the costume that Harry made for it. And just before he was about to go out to this Halloween party, which he didn't want to go to anyway, his dog ate his costume. So he had to go to this Halloween party, being thrown by the bully of the school, Mike Carey, dressed as a fairy princess. And he was wearing a mask, so they thought it was all cool. And then before he went out, he made a wish in the name of his father. His father was a coal miner who died in a tragic accident. He said, I really want this to be the most exciting Halloween ever. And he goes out and something happens. This strange mist fills the town. And basically Harry realises that everyone starts turning into whatever they're dressed as during this party. And so suddenly Harry's surrounded by all these monsters. And he's there with his best friend Buster, who is dressed as a zombie. And Buster is slowly turning into a zombie, and basically everyone looks like they're out to get Harry, and he can't figure out why. So they've had various adventures so far during the story, and I think one of the last things that happened is Arlene, his little sister, got kidnapped, and together with Buster and Darlene, who is the kind of nicest of his sister, he's got Charlene, Marlene, Darlene, and Arlene, 4 sisters, and two of them are evil, Charlene and Marlene. And so together with Darlene and Buster, they are trying to find Arlene and rescue her from pirates, which are basically the town police who have kind of kidnapped her because they're pirates now. And and the last thing that happened was that they decided to go down into a mine, which is where Arlene is, but also is which something really you should never do. Go down into an abandoned mine, which is full of monsters. So that's where we are now. The next chapter, I'm reading from a screen behind this, so I'm not reading from a book because it's not come out as a book yet. The next chapter is called Buried Alive. Okay, here we go. I'm really out of practice, so I'm sorry if I stumble over all the words. So they've just gone. They've reached. They're in the middle of the night. They're in the forest, and it's the prop house, which is the kind of the thing that used to get people down into the mine. Okay, and I've got Floyd here still. He'll never leave me. Okay, it looked rather fittingly like something from a horror movie. The hoist house was a rickety 3-story tower of rotting wood, flanked by 2 dilapidated shacks, their roofs missing. Giant props held the whole thing upright, but even they looked ready to surrender, sagging in the middle. There was something church-like about it, especially surrounded by the ink-dark forest. For over 100 years, people had come here to worship coal in a way, and they'd sacrificed their lives for it too. "Nobody breathe," said Buster, limping by Harry's side. "One good sneeze and that thing's coming down around our ears." As if it was listening to them, Buster hasn't got any ears, by the way, they've fallen off because he's a zombie. As if it was listening to them, it creaked, a gust of wind making the whole structure sway. A piece of board snapped free and clattered to the ground, bouncing into the trees. Harry cleared his throat nervously, walking the last few steps to the door. It flapped on its hinges like a mouth, like it was laughing at them. He held the wand in his sweaty palm. Harry went to the party dressed as a fairy. You probably know this because you've probably listened to them more recently than this, but he has a wand and you realise that he can do very basic magic spells. He held the wand in his sweaty, he's also got wings, in his sweaty palm, using his other hand and rainbow hair to hold the door open. Inside was a darkness so deep, so heavy, that there might have been nothing there at all except the end of the world. He turned back, looking at the dragon. Mrs. Bukowski seemed to have fallen asleep, her snoring breaths threatening to extinguish the burning trees. He wished they could take her with them, but there was no way she'd fit into the hoist house, let alone down the shaft. "Losers first," said Darlene. "I guess you'd better go then," replied Harry. "Darlene isn't a loser," said Buster. Who fancies Darlene? She's a very attractive spider. Darlene, sorry. Darlene is a spider. That was her costume. She's kind of turned into an 8-legged giant spider. "Shut up, Buster," Harry and Darlene said together. Buster almost laughed. Then he walked unsteadily through the door. "I'll go," he said, as he vanished into the gloom. "Not like I can actually die, right?" "Unless you get your head cut off," said Harry, taking a deep breath. "Rule 11, dude. Decapitation kills anything and everything, except headless horsemen." "Great," Buster said as Harry followed him in. The air was thick with rot and damp, making it hard to breathe. Now that his eyes were used to the dark, though, he could see a large wheel and a bundle of gears in the middle of the room. Past them was an opening in the ground that looked far too much like a grave for comfort. There were several ropes hanging over the edge, fixed to the walls. "That's the shaft that Jonah Carey threw that boy down," whispered Buster. "That's a myth," said Darlene. But after tonight, Harry wasn't sure. Jonah is the head of the football team, and all the football team have turned into wolves, and they're all chasing Harry, and they're quite scary. They're horrible. Swallowing his fear, he shuffled to the edge, grabbing the wheel so that he could peer down. There was light there, just the smallest of flickers at the very bottom of the shaft. He thought he could hear something, too, a rumbling, like distant machinery. "That's impossible," said Darlene. "These mines don't work anymore. Nobody's been down there in years." "Somebody's down there," said Harry. "Somebody's waiting for us." "Well, they're waiting for you," said Buster, doing his best to smile. "And Arlene's down there too," Harry said, kicking one of the ropes. "The pirates must have carried her down." "So it's settled then," said Darlene. "We go." "We go," said Harry. "We brains," said Buster. "Wait, go. Oh, you know what I brains." "Oh, no." The voice came from behind them, more growl than word. No. That's what it should have sounded like. Harry screamed, whirling around to see a shape in the doorway, silhouetted by the burning trees, its silver eyes blazing. Mike, said Harry. Mike is Jonah Carey's little brother, who's also horrible, his anger burning hotter than the inferno outside. He felt Darlene slide one of her spider legs into his hand, and this time he held her tight. How do they keep finding us? Another wolf stepped up to the door, bigger and shaggier, its eyes empty pits. They both stared at Harry, their lips pulled back into sneers. Great gobs of saliva dripped to the floor. Mike was choking, like he'd swallowed a bone, but what he coughed up was another word, distorted almost beyond recognition. Die! Did he say pie? Asked Buster, hopefully. I'm almost certain he said die, said Harry. He gripped the wand, ready to fight. A fairy princess didn't stand much of a chance against a wolf, but he was tired of running. He was tired of always being chased by Mike Carey and his psycho brother. We can, he started, but the wolves moved before he could finish. Buster shrieked, hurling himself down the shaft without so much as a look back. Darlene followed, scuttling over the edge. Guys, wait, said Harry. Wolf Mike smacked into him like a hammer and he hit the floor, a firework detonating inside his skull. He was pinned like a butterfly, the wolf's paws digging into his chest. Mike's head snapped forward and Harry raised his hand automatically, feeling the powerful jaws crunch shut around it. He waited for the pain, for the blood, but when he looked he saw the wand there, wedged into the wolf's mouth, propping it open. Arrgh! Mike snarled, choking as he tried to shake the wand loose. Harry let go of it, wiggling free. 2 more wolves were bounding across the room and Mike was recovering fast, gulping down his wand. Eat you, he snarled. No, said Harry. Eat you. He stopped for long enough to consider how weak this comeback was. Then he ran to the pit and jumped. Okay, next chapter. No escape. This time, Harry knew exactly what to do. He flexed the muscles in his back just enough to get his wings moving, to slow his fall. The buzz of his wings echoed around the shaft like 1,000 trapped mosquitoes, almost drowning out Buster's scream and the thud as his friend hit the bottom. The wolves crowded around the top of the shaft, snapping at the air, their silver eyes twinkling like stars. No, wait! Harry shouted. Eat this! And he makes a very rude gesture that I'm not going to do on screen, throwing them the bird. It was probably too dark for them to see it, and he wished he thought of it a few seconds ago, but their howls of fury gave him a small sense of satisfaction. It didn't last, because despite his wings he was still falling fast, the walls of the shaft hurtling past him. It was growing lighter all the time, the bottom racing up towards him so quickly it took him a moment to recognise the source of the glow. Fire. The bottom of the shaft was burning. Oh no, he yelled, his wings straining as he tried to halt his fall. They weren't strong enough, the pain of it too much for him. All he could do was cry out as he plummeted into the inferno that raged below. And just like that, he passed through it, landing on something surprisingly soft. It was Buster, and he was groaning. Oh, thanks, said Harry, rolling off his friend. They were at one end of a tunnel that stretched into the mountain, and for as far as he could see, the roof of the tunnel was on fire. Well, not fire exactly, he realised as he squinted up at it. It was more like clouds, huge black ones laced with flickering, shifting tongues of red and yellow light. If anything, it looked like there was a miniature storm raging inside the mine, and it made his head hurt to look at it. Harry, Darlene said from somewhere overhead. Are you okay? Is it safe? I'm fine, he said. It's not fire, it's something else. I don't think it's dangerous. Excuse me. Darlene's bug-eyed face pushed through the cloud directly above Harry, blinking. It tickles, she said, scuttling through and lowering herself to the ground. What is it? I don't know, said Harry, reaching up and swirling a hand through it. The fingers of lightning crackled around his fingers, fizzing against his skin. But I've seen it before, I think. The fog. Oh, the fog, said Buster. Yeah, the one that turned everybody into Halloween monsters. Buster clambered to his feet. He was using an old minecart to help him up, and Harry saw the rusted tracks running down the tunnel, vanishing into the shadows. At least we know we're going the right way, said Darlene, and we better move fast because it won't take Mike long to figure out a way down. She was right. But for a moment the three of them just stared along the tunnel. The pirates were already in the mines, but what else lurked here in the dark, waiting for them? Arlene's waiting, Harry answered himself. She's waiting for us. He started walking, but he'd only taken a couple of steps when something in the shaft above exploded. The concussive force of it parted the flickering clouds like they were tidal waves, and Harry saw something floating down towards them. Something sun-bright that gave off pulsing waves of energy. It was a girl, and as she dropped the last few feet, Harry saw a pair of baggy silk pants, a bejewelled shirt, and an old-fashioned copper lantern hanging from her waist. She was wearing a veil, but Harry recognised her instantly. Marlene! His sister. Marlene studied him, and he felt the power radiate from her. She was dressed as a genie, making his hair stand on end. She raised a hand, pointed a finger. Harry, she said. That doesn't sound like a very Marlene voice. Harry, she said in a voice like a cannon blast. Marlene, come on, yelled Darlene, standing protectively between Harry and his sister. It's me, it's Darlene. Silence, Marlene boomed. You can run no more. Your fate is sealed. Harry reached for his wand, then remembered that Wolf Mike had eaten it. He backed off, bumping into the old minecart. Buster was there, and they shared a look, one that said, "Oh, do you think it still works?" Sorry, that was my genie voice. You must die, Harry Hardman, said Marlene. But why? Harry yelled. I don't understand. Why do I have to die? I want to live. Living is good. Because he wills it, said Marlene. Who? Harry was almost screaming. Mike? No, said Marlene. Him. No sooner had the word left her mouth than the tunnel started to shake. A deafening thump, thump, thump rocked the walls, the tremor so strong that Harry felt like his bones might shatter. He was glad that the minecart was holding him up, because all he wanted to do was collapse to the floor and roll into a ball. The noise seemed to last forever, eventually chasing its echo into silence. It was only then that Harry noticed Marlene had doubled over. She rubbed at her eyes beneath the veil. Marlene, Harry said, are you okay? I can't, she said, her voice almost normal. I can't stop it. It's like somebody else is inside my brain. Somebody else is... Did you say brain? Whispered Buster, licking his lips. The fog was pooling around Marlene's head, those fingers of lightning flickering against her skin, probing her skull. She stood straight, her hands snapping to her side. No more talk, she boomed. I am here to end you. Wait, said Buster. Wait, you're a genie, right? A mighty djinn, she roared. What of it, ugly undead boy? Rule number 15, Buster said, looking at Harry. If you meet a genie, be careful what you wish for. You have to grant us a wish. It's the law, you know. It's the law of Halloween. It was impossible to see Marlene's expression beneath her veil. Right, squeaked Buster. Wrong, she said. You did not call me. They did. They, said Harry. Marlene was moving her hands in circles, the air shimmering, changing. For a second, Harry thought he saw the outline of a wolf. Yes, she said. They. What did they wish for? Said Buster. Marlene clapped her hands together and the air twanged like a rubber band, ripping in two. There was a hole there as tall as Harry, and through it he could see the top of the shaft, the hoist house, and half a dozen wolves climbing over themselves to get in. Oh, they wished for a portal, said Buster. That's great. Game over, said Marlene, laughing. The next chapter. Hang on, I've got to text my wife. I'm supposed to go meet her. Hang on. But there's definitely room for another chapter or channel. The next chapter is called Can I Have My Leg Back, Please? "Oh, not again!" wailed Buster as Wolf Mike tore into the tunnel, his lupine face warped with hatred. The shock of it paralysed Harry, but the wolf slammed into him so hard he tumbled head over heels into the minecart. Mike clambered up after him, making a noise like he was choking on something. Harry kicked out as hard as he could, his dad's steel-capped boots crunching into Mike's snout and driving him back. Harry got to his feet, his head spinning like a washing machine. Mike lunged again, spitting blood as he tried to climb inside the cart. The other wolves were right behind him, and it wasn't just them. Charlene was stepping through the portal, cackling, she's a witch, and a giant ape eye peered in behind her. "No!" screamed Darlene, running onto the tunnel wall and spraying silk into Mike's face. The web pinned him to the cart and he struggled to free himself, snapping at the air, still making that coughing sound. There was no way of making the cart move. Harry grabbed the only lever he could see, wrenching hard, but it was rusted in place. Fortunately, the tunnel was so narrow that the wolves were getting in each other's way. The other Halloween monsters jammed in the portal. Buster was already shuffling away into the dark. "It won't move!" Harry yelled, kicking the lever instead. Mike was pulling free, the cart rocking with the force of it. Harry turned, ready to run, but how far would he get on foot? His little legs weren't exactly fast at the best of times, and they certainly wouldn't be able to outrun a wolf, especially a wolf with a grudge. Mike snapped and snarled, choking on the wand. Harry turned back to him, took a deep breath, then rammed his hand into the wolf's mouth. It was disgustingly wet, and the reek of it almost knocked him out. Mike yelped, and by the time he remembered to bite, Darlene had fired another strand of silk around his top jaw, wrenching it open. "Where are you?" Harry growled, thrusting his hand down Mike's throat, suddenly feeling the wand there. He pulled hard, but it was jammed. Magic wand, please come free," he said. "Fill Mike's stomach with sweet iced tea." "What?" Darlene said. "I couldn't think of anything," he said. Mike gagged, his whole body convulsing. Then, with an almighty roar, he vomited a fountain of iced tea. The power of it ripped the wand free, almost taking Harry's head off as it sluiced down the tunnel. He smudged it from his eyes, seeing Mike spin in circles, looking like an untethered fire hose. The other wolves panicked, their paws splashing as they ran back towards the portal. "Go!" said Darlene, climbing into the cart and grabbing the lever. They pulled together, and with a crunch, the brake slid free. Nothing happened. "Move!" Harry yelled, kicking the cart. The flow of iced tea from Mike's gut was slowing, the wolf standing limp by one wall, retching hard. He glanced at Harry, and this time there was nothing in his expression but death. Harry lifted the wand. It had bent dramatically inside Mike's throat, the little plastic star gone. "Magic wand, make us go," he yelled. "Really fast, not really slow." The wand trembled like he had a butterfly in his hand. Then a fizzing dollop of energy dropped out of it and landed by Harry's foot. "Oh no, that didn't work," was as far as he got before the cart suddenly lurched into motion, sparks flying from the wheels as it squealed down the old track. Harry fell onto his backside, Darlene landing on top of him, both of them screaming as the cart accelerated. There was a thump as it hit something, Buster flipping over the edge and landing on top of Darlene. The cart rocked hard to the side, cracking Harry's head against the metal. Buster was back on his feet, Darlene's body wiggling as she tried to right herself. Then Harry was free, his feet slipping on pieces of loose coal as he stood. They were moving down the track impossibly quickly, the wheels rattling, the walls just a blur. The same storm raged below the ceiling, and in every flash of lightning he saw Darlene screaming and Buster's terrified eyes. His stomach lurched as they dropped down a slope, the wind so strong he thought it was going to pull his hair out. They bucked to one side, then the other, then they were slowing, and Harry was halfway to celebrating before he realised why. Something had grabbed the back of the cart, a man with enormous wings and two long curved horns jutting out of his forehead. In the light of the storm his eyes were yellow, and when he smiled Harry saw two wickedly sharp fangs. Past all this was a face that easily could have belonged to Mr. Wilson, the school janitor. "Got you," he said, extending his wings. His arm muscles flexed, the cart grumbling to a halt. The vampire demon thing let go, reaching for Harry. "No!" Buster yelled, lashing out with some kind of bat. It whacked the devil hard across his head, then again, driving him back. Is he a devil or is he a vampire? Maybe a bit of both. Anyway, driving him back. Harry leapt out of the cart, putting his shoulder to the metal to try to get it moving again. The wheels were so hot they were glowing, but the track here was smoother, and they were still angled downhill. "Watch out!" said Darlene. Harry turned to see the vampire demon right there, fangs bared, claws as sharp as razors. Oh yeah, vampire demon. "Here," said Buster, passing Harry the weapon. It wasn't a bat, as Harry had first thought. It was a leg. It was Buster's leg, from the foot to the knee, the sneaker still attached. "Oh, gross!" yelled Harry, but he swung it hard, the sneaker clonking the vampire demon on the elbow. He whirled it the other way, hitting him square in the head. "You," he said, swinging the leg and hitting the demon in the shoulder. "Can't," he said, thumping it in the neck. "Have," he grunted, catching it in the flank and making it whine with pain. "Me," he screamed, swinging the leg overhead like a sledgehammer. Thunk. Buster's sneaker connected with the bridge of the monster's nose and it crumpled to the floor. It looked almost as if it was sobbing. Harry shunted his body into the cart, feeling it give way to gravity. He tossed the leg and clambered in, clinging to the side as they picked up speed again. "Ah, thanks," he said to Buster. "No worries," his friend replied, holding out his one remaining hand. "Can I have my leg back now?" "Oh, said Harry. The cart slammed its way down, levelling out after a few seconds. Then it bumped to a halt. "Dead end," said Darlene, clambering out. And she was right, Harry thought. This was a dead end. In more ways than one. How we doing? Yeah, there's one more chapter. Walking the plank. Harry tried to climb out of the cart, but his legs didn't seem to want to obey him. He was too short and too exhausted, and it was only when Buster gave him a hefty shove that he managed to roll over the top and crash to the floor. He lay there for a while, staring at the weird fog that pooled and swirled at the top of the tunnel. He had never, not one single time in his life, been this exhausted. Not even doing cross-country at school. He wasn't sure if he'd ever be able to move again. It was as if the half-mile of rock overhead had slipped loose and trapped him, 1,000,000 tons crushing him to jelly. "Little help," said Buster, "since, you gave my leg to a vampire demon dude." Harry heard Buster grunt as Darlene helped him out of the cart. Then she was standing over Harry, all 8 eyes blinking. "You can do this," she said. "I can't," Harry replied. "I can't even stand up." She shuffled around so that her butt was pointing right at him. "You want me to help?" All right, he said, his stomach muscles fluttering as he wiggled into a sitting position. I'm up. Just don't butt shoot me again." He grabbed the cart and stood. Buster was clinging onto it, looking sicker than ever. He didn't have long left, Harry knew. Sooner or later the rest of him was going to disintegrate like a split shopping bag. "It's bad, isn't it?" Buster said. It's not good," Harry replied. Darlene had sprayed a strand of silk on the cart's brake lever, and with a twist of her body, she wrenched it loose. It was just about the right length for a crutch, and Buster took it gratefully, wedging it in his armpit. Harry sucked in a shuddering breath and grabbed his friend's other arm, and together they limped away from the cart. It was so dark down here, just the lightning in the fog to light their way. Darlene had been wrong, though. It wasn't a dead end. Harry spotted a narrow passageway in the rock that led into an even deeper darkness. "You hear that?" said Darlene. Nope," said Buster. "I don't really have any ears." "I hear it," said Harry. There was music ahead. Laughter, too, rising and falling in waves. He pushed his way into the passage, Darlene right behind him, feeling a moment of panic before it opened up into an enormous cave. Harry sucked in a lungful of air, almost sobbing with the relief of it. The relief didn't last long, though, because it soon became clear where the music and the laughter were coming from. The cave was full of pirates. There had to be 50 of them, maybe more, caught in the flickering light of the flaming torches that were mounted on the walls. One side of the cave was covered with an old wooden miner's scaffold, platforms and ladders stretching to the ceiling 50 feet overhead. Some of the pirates was standing there, drinking and singing and drunkenly, I'm speaking drunkenly swinging their swords. More still were on the large, open cavern floor. "Look," said Darlene, pointing a leg past Harry. He followed it to see the far wall of the cavern. It was made up of what looked like loose rubble and boulders, as if it was about to collapse. Beams of light cut through the fractured rock, bright and golden, pooling on the wet floor and illuminating the clouds of fog that swirled overhead. "Do you think that's a way out?" "It has to be," said Harry. He heard a bark, and he scanned the cave, seeing a cage on the middle level of scaffolding. Dizzy was inside it. Dizzy's his dog, who short for Disaster, who ate his Halloween costume and started this whole thing. Dizzy was inside it, running in circles. There was no sign of Arlene, but after a moment more, Harry spotted her on the platform above. She was dancing with a small group of pirates, her smile the brightest thing in the cave. "Oh, typical Arlene," said Darlene proudly. And it was true. Arlene could make a friend out of anybody. "There's no way we're getting up there," Harry said. "Not without some kind of distraction." "Distraction, you say?" said Buster. "Consider it done." Okay," said Darlene. "We rescue Arlene and Dizzy. Then what? We'll have an army of pirates on our tail, not to mention a town full of Halloween creeps chasing us down those tunnels." Harry looked at the pirates, then at the far wall. The light was so bright there that he had to blink the spots from his eyes. "Leave it to me," he said. He turned to Buster. "Are you going to be okay?" "You were right," Buster replied. "Rule 7. The sidekick is always doomed." "You're not a sidekick," said Harry. "You're Buster." Buster nodded, then limped out of the passageway, heading for the middle of the cave. The pirates were making so much noise that they didn't see him until he'd reached one of those shafts of sunlight. He stopped there, clearing his throat until gradually the music and the singing stopped. "Hello," he croaked. "My name is Buster, and I'm going to tell you some jokes." "Oh God, no," said Darlene. There was a clatter of feet as the pirates ran from the platforms, jumping and climbing their way to the cave floor. Their swords caught the light, glinting, but they didn't attack. They circled around Buster, waiting to see what would happen. "Go," said Darlene, scuttling up the wall of the cave. Harry waited a moment more, then ran for the closest platform. The back row of pirates was only a dozen yards away, and he could hear Buster shouting over their murmurs. I shouldn't laugh at these jokes because they're terrible, but they're all mine. Or at least not mine, but they're all jokes I tell. What do you call a fat pumpkin?" Buster asked. A plumpkin." Nobody laughed. Harry climbed up a ladder onto the first platform, edging past a huge cannon. On the cave floor below, Buster was telling another joke. "What instrument does a skeleton play?" "A trombrain." "No, I mean a trombrain." "No, I mean brain. Damn it, a trombone. Trombone. Harry groaned, making up the next ladder. The cages were up here, and Dizzy spotted him instantly. The dog started howling, scratching at the bars. "Shh, hush up," Harry hissed. "I'll be back." He glanced down, but if any of the pirates heard the dog, they weren't interested. Buster was telling another joke, one about Count Dracula's favourite fruit being a nectarine. And this time, one of the pirates burst out laughing. Harry ran to the next ladder, and when he started to climb it, he was surprised to see Arlene's face peering over the top. "Harry!" she said too loud. "I knew you'd come!" "Shh!" he replied, holding a finger to his lips. "Can you make it down?" "It's just like our bunk beds," she replied, swinging a leg over. "Of course I can." Dizzy was barking now, the whole cage rattling as he threw himself at the door. Harry looked down again, and this time 2 of the pirates were staring back at him. "Coffin drops!" Buster shouted. For all the coughing." "Hey!" one of the pirates yelled, pointing his cutlass at Harry. "There he be!" "Oh, nuts," said Harry, helping Arlene down the last couple of rungs. A mighty howl rose up from the pirates as they realised what was happening, and they moved as one, a sea of scowling faces crashing towards the platforms. "Oh, they're really not that bad," said Arlene. "One of them was teaching me the hornpipe." Harry grabbed his sister and threw her over his shoulder, kicking Dizzy's cage open. The dog flew out like a bullet, almost knocking Harry off his feet. He jumped up, licking Harry's face. "Easy, boy, easy," Harry spluttered. He doubled back along the platform, stopping when he reached the ladder. There was already a pirate halfway up it, a knife clenched in his yellowing teeth. Buster was nowhere to be seen, lost in the flood of beards and hats and peg legs. "Harry!" cried Darlene from overhead. She was on the ceiling, almost lost in the flickering fog. She fired a strand of silk from her butt and it hit the dog. With a deft twist, she pulled Dizzy off the platform and he swung across the cave in a slow, gentle, howling arc. Harry panicked, kicking the ladder. It tilted away from the platform, balancing perfectly upright for a moment before toppling into the crowd. There was another roar of fury, followed by a percussion of gunfire as several pirates fired their pistols. Harry ducked, hearing the shots thudding into the wood and pinging off the walls. He ran along the platform, but the pirates were everywhere, climbing the poles, swarming onto the scaffold. There was nowhere to go. "Got ye!" screeched one pirate. It was the captain, Harry saw. "Ye and your treasure!" "I don't have any treasure," Harry said, backing away and thudding into a cannon. Behind him, the ladder was being raised again, a dozen pirates already clinging to it. He held Arlene, wondering if the pirates would dance with him the way they did with her, or if they'd just make him walk the plank that stretched out in front of him. Arlene shuffled in his grip. "You do have treasure," she said, reaching for his head. He felt something scratch across his scalp. "You're a fairy princess, remember?" Arlene was holding his crown. It wasn't the plastic one Darlene had given him at the start of the evening, studded with glass beads and tinsel. It looked like it was made of real gold, and the jewels that ran along its side sparkled in the light from the far side of the cave. "You're a genius, Arlene," Harry said, grinning. He took the crown from her and held it up. Every single pirate fell quiet, 100 pairs of big round eyes blinking wetly. This crown is worth a king's ransom," Harry shouted. "Go get it!" He threw the crown with everything he had, watching it sail over the heads of the pirates and clatter onto the cave floor. The effect was instantaneous, the pirates roaring as they fought for their prize. Harry didn't watch to see what happened. He ran for the ladder, reaching it in time to see the first wolf charge through the passageway from the tunnel outside. "No!" he cried out, looking up at Darlene. He could read her expression as well as she could read his, both of them thinking the same thing. We're trapped. Harry backed away, hitting the cannon again. It was pointing across the cave towards the far wall. Daylight still leaked through the broken rock, bright and pure and golden. "Hang on," Harry said to Arlene, hefting her up while he dug his wand from his pocket. He shook it and then held it to the cannon. "Magic wand, nice and bright. Set this cannon's fuse alight." "You're getting good at this," said Arlene. The wand hiccuped in his grip, a glowing ember popping out of the end. It almost missed its target, dancing on the wind and eventually landing on the fuse, coming to life with a snake-like hiss. Harry looked up, ready to call for Darlene, but she was 2 steps ahead of him. The pirate captain was right there, swinging a cutlass that was bigger than Harry. Harry ducked, running along the plank and jumping from the end just as Darlene fired a rope of silk. It smacked Harry in the chest, holding him tight. His stomach tried to eject itself from his behind as he swung down, low enough to knock the hats from 3 startled pirates before he started climbing again. The cannon roared behind him, the sound making the whole cave shake. The cannonball whoosh, burned past Harry, thumping into the base of the far wall hard enough to punch a hole right through it. Boulders crashed to the ground, the entire wall seeming to slump even. Darlene cut the web, and Harry skidded across the ground, managing to stay upright. Hoisting Arlene up again, he bolted for the wall. The cave was in uproar, pirates shouting, wolves howling, witches cackling, and all the sounds of Halloween crashing after him like a wave. "Don't stop!" Buster called out, appearing from the shadows on the far side of the cave. He waved Harry on with his only hand. Darlene was scuttling down the wall from the ceiling. Harry reached her as she reached the ground, letting Arlene slide off his shoulder. The hole that the cannon had made was right there, light pouring out of it as thick as water. It looked small, but Harry wasn't exactly a giant. "Go!" he shouted, watching as Darlene crawled into the tunnel. Arlene followed, then Buster, kicking through with his one remaining leg. Harry looked back, seeing Dizzy burst free of the crowd and race across the cave. The wolves were right on his tail, insane with fury. The dog thumped into the hole like a train, like a train entering a tunnel. Then Harry was in too. It was so small in here, he could barely move, but he wormed his way in, following Dizzy's panting breaths. Buster's whines. One of the wolves snapped at his heels, but he was pretty sure they were too big to get through the gap. He sped up anyway, fighting the panic, the terror, until he spilled out of the tunnel, scrambling onto his feet, ready to fight whatever had followed him in. But there was nothing there. Harry sighed, breathing in daylight. Oh, this is good. Yeah, I wouldn't relax just yet, said Darlene in a hushed voice. You might want to turn around first. He really, really didn't want to, but he did. Of course he did. And what he saw there made him want to turn back and throw himself to the wolves. And the next chapter is called Knock Knock, which weirdly is the title of the book I've just put out like a week ago. But I'm going to read that tomorrow. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm going to finish this book, and then we'll be in a good place to start The Devil's Engine. I hope you enjoyed that. It was really nice getting back into the world of Harry Hardman. I don't know why this book hasn't come out yet. But like I said, it's been a weird few years. I better run because I'm late to meet my wife. It's been so lovely to see you again. And yeah, I will catch you again very, very soon. Take care of yourselves, and thank you for listening.